And I said, the way you help them is by leading from the front, right?
Right. Right.
Raise your commitment level, read by the front, or lead by the front, and like more people will follow because they'll be excited to work with you.
What is up, friends? Rob Sevilla here, the Medicare Minister, and I'm back with a brand new Spitting Fire leadership podcast interview today. And listen, I'm with my man, Mr. David Price. David, will you say what's up to everyone real quickly?
Hey, how's everyone doing today?
Listen, I know David's going to spit some serious fire today, and I'm excited he's on the podcast all the way from Cape Coral, Florida. But before we dive into that, I want to remind you why I interview leaders like this in different spaces. And that is because I live by a mantra that says you and I, were created on purpose for a purpose. And so I know something David's going to say today and what we're going to talk about. Here's what I believe. I believe it's going to divinely inspire you to start living on purpose in 2022. And so, David, I'm so excited that you're on the podcast today. And I always like to start off this way. Can you give us maybe a 30,000-foot view of your story, maybe a little bit of the background, some of that transition time up to what you're doing today?
Yeah, absolutely. First, big thanks. I appreciate you asking me to be on your podcast, and always humbled and, to be asked to be on a podcast, and super pumped and fired up, and always want to share some stuff. And like you said, just hopefully that somebody watches this and they get something that just helps them, level up and live in purpose. I love that. So I came from not much, right? I've been homeless. I lived in homeless shelters, lived in hotels, trailers. I didn't have a lot growing up. I had what I need. I had a mom that cared about me and loved me and did her best. And, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur and tried multiple businesses and had a little bit of success in some, not as much in others. And eventually insurance came across my desk basically. And I wasn't really looking to be an insurance agent. I always heard the industry was a good industry to be in. I didn't really know how to get involved. And I saw an opportunity, and I thought it was a great opportunity to create a business. And I looked at it as if it was a business opportunity, where I think a lot of people look at it as another job, every decision I made was, how do I build a business out of this? And the first part of it is learning how to do it. So I started as an agent and was door knocking leads. Did that for about a year until my agency was big enough that it needed some help from me to work on the agency. So then I became not an employee in my business. I got to work on my business at that point, and from there it just really exploded. We do a lot of final expense insurance, help a lot of people, have a lot of agency owners now that I help build businesses as well.
Yeah, and I was watching another interview with you, David, and it said that you were the fastest millionaire in your company. Is that correct?
Yeah. So within getting my insurance license, within 36 months, I deposited over $1 million in my bank account.
Wow.
Or right around the 36-month part, it was actually about $1 million. So that was within 3 years of having my license. This would be the 4th year of having my license, and I'm on pace to do $1 million this year in a single year. So it's cool. And, I love talking about that, obviously. But what I think is more important to talk about is the first 6 months in the business with extreme efforts, right? Not from sitting on the couch. I made $30,000 my first 6 months. So I made $30,000 my first 6 months, wanted to quit, wasn't making money as fast as I can, was pulling out the calculator, trying to figure out what was wrong, blaming everything on the outside. That was the issue. And then finally realized, one, I can't quit at 6 months because I can't actually say I started. So it wouldn't be quitting. It wouldn't be starting. And then two, I had to stop trying to fix things on the outside. And over the next 2.5 years, I deposited $970,000 in my bank account. So it was a great pay raise when I started figuring out the issue was me and nothing else.
Dude, you're spitting some fire now, man. I want to dissect a couple of things here. And I totally agree. The money's good. But a lot of people don't realize, and this is what I believe, you may believe different. Maybe if you're watching today, you may be different. We all want God to bless us or whatever you believe in. We all want to be blessed with the $1 million, but we don't want to become the person that can have the capacity to be a good steward of that $1 million, right? And become that person. So I love that. And you said something about blaming. And I believe this, David. I believe that blaming blocks our breakthrough and blaming blocks us from getting blessed. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're real fast to point the fingers or get mad at someone, right? Let's say, we were scheduled to do this podcast. Let's say you didn't show up, right? And I was there. Then I'm all mad at you for not showing up. Like, what's going on? Wasting my time.
Sure.
But the minute we do something, let's say I say, all right, I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m, go to the gym, and then I wake up and say, I'm going to hit snooze. We give ourselves a pass.
Sure.
Right. So me being mad at you and emailing you or whatever, right, that gives you an opportunity to be like, man, you're right, I messed up. Let me fix myself. But me setting the snooze and giving myself a pass, that means I go through the next day the same person. I don't get a chance to change myself. So we're real fast to try to call people out and fix other people. And we're not always great at fixing ourselves and taking some responsibility for our own failures.
Yeah, no, I love that. And one of the things I want to dissect real quickly is that first 6 months to depositing that $1 million and now on track to do another $1 million within this year. What is the biggest breakthrough or mindset shift that you had to have to get there? Is there something that rises at the top that you go, this was a defining moment for me?
Yes. It was all mindset, period. Right. So, and that's what I realized. I realized my mindset wasn't right. I realized that I was looking at other things. Maybe if I had a higher comp, better leads, more leads, worked in a different area, I was looking at all these other, external forces and trying to fix them. And what I realized is that I just had to, one, work on the mindset. Two, I had to get on my knees and pray for some patience. I'm 6 months in the industry, wondering why I'm not a millionaire yet, right? Wondering why I'm not, where these other people are that have been doing this a lot longer than me, that put all this energy out into the universe, right? That came back and started blessing them. Yeah. And I'm only 6 months in. I didn't do my part yet. It wasn't my chance to be blessed. And especially being as impatient I was at being. So one thing, like I said, I got on my knees and prayed for patience. And that was something serious. That was a big deal. And, I help a lot of agents with that too. They try to compare their story to mine. I was like, listen, like, I understand, like, you want to be where I'm at and you want to do it as fast as I did it. But, look at where you're at a year ago. Like, let's have some gratitude. Right. You reached out to me because you wanted to make $500 a month. You made over $200,000 last year. Right. Let's have some gratitude, some patience, look where we're at. And then, then you got that friction. I feel like when people are walking around in friction, blaming, like impatient, they're not flowing. And when you're not flowing, you're not going to produce, you're not going to have the ability to help people. As your ability increases, your ability to help people increases, your income will increase with that. And the biggest thing is I was so focused on making the money my first 6 months that I forgot about helping the people, being patient, and all those important things that make everything else easy.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that. I watched an interview one time with Dabo Swinney, the head coach of Clemson, and he talked about embracing the suck, right? And that's what you're talking about, is that many of us are not willing to suck bad enough and long enough at something until we can get good at it. And it sounds like you were able to persevere past that 6 months. Fast forward today, now you're on track to do $1 million in commissions. And that's pretty powerful. I also heard on interview where you said you were in the military. In the military, what was one of the biggest takeaways from the military that has contributed to your success today?
So leadership was a big one, right? Learning. I think I was always a natural leader. I was captain of the wrestling team, and people tend to follow people that lead. And what I learned is people that they want to be led, right? People want to be told what to do, and so that helped. And then just some discipline stuff. So I was in the Army from 2000 to 2004. So I was part of the initial invasion in Iraq. And, when we went to Iraq, you really started seeing that people act different, right? The people that were leading when there wasn't anything to really lead, they wanted somebody to follow at that point. And it just showed me a lot about people and just taking chances and just always moving forward. Like, listen, every move you make doesn't have to be the right move as long as you're not standing still. And that's where I learned that.
Yeah, no, I love that. I call it taking massive imperfect action. Just take action. It's not going to be perfect when you first start out, but at least you do something, right? So I definitely love that. Let me ask you, because we're on a leadership podcast, you're talking about leadership. What do you define as a great leader? Is there a characteristic that you look to in a leader that you go, this is what makes a great leader?
So that's a great question. I actually did an interview earlier today, and they were asking me, what was, my results aren't typical in the industry, right? So what
Right.
are some things that I'm different? Like, why do I think I'm having those results? And it's being honest,
Mm,
right? It's integrity. The best compliment you could ever give me is that I'm just real, that I'm not going to
yeah.
tell you what you want to hear, that, my job, if you do every single thing I tell you to do, you'll be successful in this industry, right? And the problem is we're all critics. We're all, we
Mm,
don't believe, and we're trying to figure out what's wrong.
right.
And I have to build that trust with an agent. So when the agent finds out I lied to him or I told him something that wasn't true, well, now they dissect every single thing I say in the future.
Mm,
So it's super important for me from the first time I talk to somebody, like I need to be 100% honest, 100% transparent. If they're assuming something, and even if it's not a conversation you really want to have, I have to tell them like, no, that's not it. That's not how it's going to be. It's actually going to be harder than that. Right. And I need to build the trust because I need to make sure that no matter what I say or what I ask someone to do, that they don't ever question. It's like, well, last time he told me to do something, I found out he was lying or he was wrong, right? I have to be the opposite, and the better I can get somebody to trust me, the more successful they're going to be. If I look at all my top agents, we all had a relationship before they got their insurance license, so the trust was there.
mm.
And so I think as being a leader, I think it's super important to build the trust. Like, you don't have to sugarcoat, you don't have to tell people stuff that's not true. Just be yourself, be genuine, listen, you can't, people are smart, right? People are
Yeah.
smart. You could get away with something for a little bit, but eventually they're going to find out, they're going to figure it out. And you just ruin that relationship. And this business is all about relationships. Being an entrepreneur, everything's about relationships. I don't care what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I heard you say a quote about choosing your own story, like whether your story will be this or your story be that. Will you expound on that a little bit more? Because I really thought that was a powerful moment in an interview that you did.
I mean, my story could be simple, right? It could be like, kid grew up, his parents, had some substance abuse issues, they were divorced, it was a welfare, and that could have been my story, right? And I could just, be washing cars for a living or something, that isn't, as financially beneficial as what I'm doing now. But I refused for that to be my story. I always wanted to be successful, and I didn't really know how, but I was always creating some unperfect action, right? Just creating action, just trying to figure it out, just always trying to do the next thing. And sometimes they were good decisions, sometimes they're bad decisions, sometimes, I had a good ROI, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of my worst words as an entrepreneur, I hate the ROI, but some had better and some had worse. But as long as I was always moving forward and always learning from it, it was always a win. So, I choose my story not to have anything to do with my past. And, my past didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And I think when people start looking at that and realizing that, I had a lot of adversity as a very young child. And that made me resilient as an adult. There's throw whatever you want at me. I've dealt with worse. And I think that's what made me. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for every single thing that I went through that made me who I am today.
So let's make it very practical, right? Because you're talking about the critics out there. When people watch these stories, they're like, well, David, you don't know my story. Like my story, me personally, I was a victim of child abuse, right? One of my stepdads physically was abusive to my mother. And to me, we grew up very poor on welfare. We were in a lot of these low income housing places. We always had to move, had the food stamps, the whole 9 yards. But I agree. I believe that molded me and shaped me into the person that I am today. So let's make it very practical. Somebody out there being that critic going, David and Rob, they just don't understand my story. What is something practical that they can do, that they can start right now to begin to switch from it happened to me, that it happened for me? Can you give some advice or speak into that just for a second?
Absolutely. First of all, it sounds like we're neighbors for a while, right? But yeah, the thing that really started changing me is when I started seeking knowledge. Right? You and I, we didn't grow up with Google, right? We didn't grow up with access to so many things, audiobooks and stuff that we have access to. And what really happened to me is I started getting into self-development. Like I said, I was always a hard worker, and again, I was used to adversity, But then when I mix that with self-development, I think Tony Robbins was like the first person I heard, and I heard some Tony Robbins stuff. I'm like, yeah, man, this guy's right. You know, and then that got me excited. And then I just constantly added more stuff and just learning and then surrounding yourself with the right people, right? Surrounding yourself with people winning. You know, most all my friends that I talk to on a regular basis are all business owners now. That wasn't the case, right? It wasn't the case. You know, it was completely the opposite for a long time. But when I start, you know, making sure the conversations I have are with people that talk about positive things and enlighten you and help raise you up, and you start feeding your mind with positive things, and you do that, and it's not going to change you in a day, and it's not going to change you over a week. But if you constantly do that stuff for months and years, you're going to change who you are, right? You're going to change how you think. Your mindset's going to change. Your support system is going to change. Your opportunities that get in front of you are going to change.
Yeah, and I love that. One of the guys that I follow, he talks about how many entrepreneurs sacrifice being on the altar of doing, that we focus so much on the doing, the 10 ways to do this, the 3 ways to do this, or whatever the case may be, but we never focus on becoming a perpetual becomer. And I believe mindset, self-development, consuming the right content, getting around that right community is a major factor in becoming the person you need to become to get to that next level. Why do you think so many people in our space, but just entrepreneurs in general, discount that? Because I hear a lot of times people go, oh, that's just corny. You guys are just trying to raw people to death. Why do you think so many people discount that and don't really take it seriously? Do you have any wisdom to speak into that?
They just don't believe, you know, again, you know, I've mentored hundreds of, probably maybe over 1,000 agents by now. And, you know, I need to figure out how to increase their belief, right? If you believe that you should live in a 10,000 square foot house, right, on the ocean, and you truly believe it, you're going to do everything that you need to do to make that happen.
Yeah.
And most people, they don't believe it. They don't believe they can accomplish the things they can accomplish. Because I know for myself, right, my belief level of what I can accomplish is a lot higher, right? It wasn't low 3 years ago, but because of what I've accomplished in the last 3 years, my belief level is like, man, I could accomplish a lot more, right? My targets and my goals that were like unreachable that I've ended up reaching is like, okay, cool. I need bigger goals and bigger targets because now my belief level raised. And the only way anyone's belief level is going to raise is if they're walking down that path. And I always explain it. It's like you're standing there and you're looking and you see a picture. And the pictures, you know, you kind of see the colors, you kind of see it, but you're not really sure what it is exactly. And that's your future. And as you walk and you get closer and closer, then the colors get brighter and things get more vivid and you see it better. And as you see it better, you're able to walk faster, right? Because now you're getting more excited. You have the energy. And again, as you're getting closer and closer, you know, that vision, it gets crystal clear, right? But the problem is a lot of people, they don't take those steps forward, right? So they don't ever get to see, you know, what someone else sees who's starting to create that action and do those things and put that stuff in place to become a different person.
Speaking of the belief level, was there something in your own life over the past 3 years, maybe a mentor, a book, a conference, a podcast, that you go back or that you're comfortable to share, that you say, you know what, after I consumed this content or after I spoke to this mentor, after I attended this event, there was a nugget or there was something that just changed inside of me that took my belief factor? Or is it something you just worked on consistently and then you just saw it compound over time?
Yeah, just compounding. There wasn't one thing.
Okay.
You know, the one blessing I had as a child is my grandfather was a successful business owner. Right. So I'm living in the projects, right? You know, things are tough, living on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. And every once in a while I go to my grandpa's for the weekend and, you know, we had nice meals, every meal, and, you know, nice, comfortable place to be at, driving around a brand new Lincoln Town car. And I was like, man, I want to be a business owner. Like, I want some of this. So it gave me a glimpse of what I could accomplish. So I was chasing that for a long time. And then, you know, I surpassed where my grandfather got in business and he was very successful. But as you do more and accomplish more, it becomes easier to believe that you could go even further, right? It's like running, right? If you're a runner and you run 400 meters, like, all right, cool, I can do 400 meters. And then you run and you do a mile, like, all right, cool, I can do a mile. Maybe I can do two. And then you do two. And like, all right, well, maybe I can do half a marathon. Then you do a half. Like, wait, maybe I can do a full marathon, right? It's the same thing. But again, if you don't get off the couch, you'll never think you could actually run a marathon.
Yeah, no, I definitely love that. And just kind of staying in the track of, mentors speaking their life. I heard you make a statement about when you're looking for a company, of course, in our space where we talk a lot about uplines and things like that. But I heard you say choose a mentor or look at the mentor over the company. So talk about that for a minute. Why is that mentor piece so important?
So again, I wasn't even looking to be an insurance agent. And one of my mutual friends was telling me somebody I actually grew up with was making a lot of money in insurance. And when I looked him up, I saw that it looked like he was doing well. He had a big title. And, I had really two questions. One, I'm not a prospector. I know I'm not good at prospecting. So one, is there a lead program? How do you find people?
Right.
And the other question is, will you mentor me? Like, I need someone successful to mentor me. And again, just going through the process, I have friends at almost every single company. And there's no such thing as a bad insurance company, right? Some might be easier than others at different things, but I don't believe there's such thing as a bad company. But there's different levels of mentorship. Right. Somebody that's brand new to the business that doesn't really understand the business or isn't fully committed themselves is obviously not going to be as great as a mentor to somebody who has created $1 million in income in the business. So people get so focused, and I see it in the Facebook groups all the time and stuff, like, what company should I join? What company should I join? Which company has a high comp? And they're so focused on like this one little detail that they think is going to be successful. And I always want to reply back like, well, what do you offer? Like, what is your commitment level going to be? Right. Because that's it. Like, their success is based off them. They're trying to find their success on something else. And them not even realizing, they're thinking like, hey, I give these people a 200% comp. They're still going to be broke, right? The comp's not going to make them successful. But if they're willing to ask for help, right? So them not even asking about mentorship means they're not willing to ask for help. And if you're not willing to ask for help, you're not going to be successful in something new. I know for me, when I started, I dumped my cup out. Even if I thought I knew something, I pretended I didn't. Right? Because I wanted to be in the process of learning new things. I wanted to do something I've never done before. I wanted to get some results I haven't reached before. So I had to be a different person, and be a different person, I had to ask for help and start using someone else's brain. So yeah, 100% mentorship is so important. It doesn't matter what it is, what business you're doing. If you want to be successful, you need to find somebody. And again, this was Tony Robbins. He talked about modeling. He says, stop trying to reinvent the wheel. We'll find someone that has what you want, that's doing what you want, and just model exactly what they did. And that's one of the first things I heard when I started into self-development. And that stuck out. Maybe that was the breakthrough. Now that you got me talking, maybe that was the breakthrough, because I stopped trying to figure out things on my own at that point and started letting people having success teach me.
And David, that's so hard, isn't it? I mean, I'm a high D personality guy, 8 years old. I'm raising 3 siblings. My mom's a single mom, working all the time. I become the man of the house. I'm just a doer, man. That's what I was born and bred to do, as a doer. And we love this independence and this autonomy so much, and I'm going to use a reference that I think you'll understand, but it's so hard for us to find that Mr. Miyagi, if you will, that will teach us. And I think about that scene in Karate Kid, which, by the way, cat out of the bag here, it's my favorite movie of all time. Not that Will Smith son stuff. I'm talking about, Daniel's son. Real one. and I love this scene where Mr. Miyagi has left him to paint the fence, wash the car, sand the fence, or sand the deck, and paint the house. And Daniel's son comes back, and Mr. Miyagi's coming in there with his fishing pole, just chilling. And Daniel's son just puts him on blast. Right, and starts cussing him out, telling him, I'm just here to be your slave. I'm just here to do all this stuff. And then the paradigm shift happens, the awakening moment. And Mr. Miyagi says, show me, paint the fence. Show me this, show me that. And Danielson realizes in that moment that all along he had been mentored. He may not have been mentored the way he thought he should be mentored, because he was there to learn karate. right? But he did not realize it. And I love what you're saying, because so many people want to be mentored the way they want to be mentored and tell the mentor how to mentor instead of letting the mentor do what's necessary. So I love what you're saying there. Why do you think so many people struggle with that? Is it pride? Is it ego? Is it just a combination of a lot of things?
I just don't think they know better, right? Because like I said, I was there. I was the guy that was going to try to figure themselves out. I mean, it's definitely the ego, right? It's the ego that stops you. You know, a lot of times when people talk about ego, they look at it as like, oh, I think I'm better than you. And, you know, when I really get deep and I start looking at ego, and again, I learned some stuff about ego through some self-development, and it's more of like, I got this. Like I don't need your help. Right. That's the way I look at it. And once you realize that it's your ego stopping you, right? The ego is stopping every single person, you know, especially, you know, these people that just aren't having success at all.
Yeah.
But they're just like, no, this is it. I got this. This is it. And they're just like, you know, I saw somebody on Facebook. I think he planned on saying he was going to do 2,000 applications this year.
Right.
Or something like that, you know, and I'm sure the guy hasn't done 2,000 applications in his life, you know. But it's his ego saying like this, I got this, you know, and instead of, you know, just asking for help and realizing like, you know, there's some people ultra successful at every single company. And, you know, once you start creating some action, you know, get access to those people and let them mentor you, let them show you how they did it. Because most people, what I learned is most people that are successful have no problem telling you how they did it.
Yeah.
And the reason why I believe is because they know most people won't do it.
Yeah. Now that's worth the price of admission right there. You can go back and put that on loop over and over and over again. And I can say that from experience too. I believe I'm 47 years old now. And I believe for many years, I sabotaged my own success because I thought I knew everything.
Yep.
I didn't listen and humble. So real quickly, right? This is coming from a guy now. I'm going to look in the camera. This is coming from David Price. That $1 million in commissions in his bank account, on track to do $1 million this year. He's giving you some secret sauce here that you need to humble yourself. You need to check your ego at the door. So David, what are just some practical things? What is one thing that maybe you put into place that helps you keep that ego in check, or helps you get over yourself, if you will, in order to you to have the success you have today?
Active listening. Listening is the biggest one. So just realizing like when you're talking, you're telling people what you know. When you're listening, you actually have an opportunity to learn. And what I do is I see people, you know, even at the agent client level. Yeah. Right. The biggest issue agents have in the beginning is they're talking the whole time. Right. If they're good at what they're doing, anytime they're talking to me, asking a question to learn about how they can help the client. When you're talking, you can't tell the client, you can't find out how to help the client, right? So if you're going to be in sales, right, you need to learn how to listen. Yeah. You need to learn how to ask questions to get people to paint a picture that shows you how to help them. Right now, when you're trying to be mentored, same thing. Like you need to learn how to ask questions. When you spend time with people that are doing better things than you're doing, you should be spending those times listening and not talking. Or if you have to talk, it should be nothing but questions. Yeah, I'm a big advocate of having the notebook too, man. When I'm around people like you and other big time leaders, man, I'm taking notes. I got my notes right here as you're talking, and I'm writing stuff down because I believe that people that change the world are note takers, right? They write things down. You said something earlier on in this podcast interview about having to change the community. One of the things that I tell people is that you're giving people VIP access that should be in the nosebleeds, right? And some people take that offensively, like, oh, who do you think you are? You think you're better. That's those critics you're talking about, right? Those complainers and grumblers. Talk about that for a minute, because I think sometimes we want to take everybody on the journey with us, and we give them that VIP access, but for a season, they really need to be in the nosebleeds, right? Because they're actually becoming more of a deterrent toward your destiny than a help. Will you talk about that? What maybe some things that you did to help change your tribe, if you will? Yeah. So, you know, the one thing I realized, and I think the reason why people do this is people, they don't want to look at themselves, right? So they want to fix and help other people. before they want to look at themselves and help themselves. And once you realize that, I was on the phone with one of my agents today, and he was trying to figure out like how to help more people write business. And, he admitted his commitment level wasn't where it should be. And I said, the way you help them is by leading from the front, right? Raise your commitment level, lead by the front, and like more people will follow, because they'll be excited to work with you, right? If you're the number one producer at a company, people are going to be pumped to work with you, right? You're going to become a cult. You're going to have a cult following, and that's going to make it easier to lead people and help them. As far as changing the people I hang with, I was at a car show one day, and a guy pulled up with a Bugatti. Or I didn't see the person that got out, but I saw the car, and I was with my girl, and I said, "Hey, did you see who got out of that car?" And she points to the guy, and I walk right up to him, and I introduced myself. Got his phone number. I said, "Listen, I know you don't need any money, obviously, but if you ever want to go to lunch or dinner, you're not going to pay with me, right? Because I want to learn what this guy, like, how do you drive a $1.3 million car? What did he do in his life to be able to do that?" And he ended up being a really great guy. He was a high school dropout. He had a painting business, and he started flipping houses, and he's heavily into real estate. He's got a construction company, multi-unit door units. And but it's really cool. Again, he came from nothing, and the guy, I think that was like one of like 50 cars he owned. So it's just really going out of your way and trying to put those people in place and provide more value. In my past, I was always like, "Hey, what can I get from you?" Right? It's like, "Hey, Dave, will you do a podcast for me?" "Sure. What do I get?" Right? That would have been like the old Dave, but it's like, "Hey, absolutely, I'd love to. How can I help out?" Right. And when I start trying to figure out how do I give more than I take, and what happens when you do that, you actually start getting more than you do when you're always trying to take from people. And it's amazing how that happens. So, my goal is to provide more value, give more than I get. Hey, if you let me borrow $10, you get $11 back.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I'm not giving you, you're going to get something. I'm always going to get more than I'm taking.
And isn't it interesting that when you sow that type of seeds, man, whether you want to call it the universe, I believe in the God of the Bible, whatever you believe today, for those watching, it's interesting that I believe it's this divine principle. It seems counterproductive and counterintuitive, but every successful person, David, that I've ever been around says the same thing, that I just started giving more, making an impact more. And now I have so many blessings just overtaking me, so many doors opening up, so many opportunities. And that's what you're speaking to today. So once again, I want to make it very, very practical for somebody watching today. What's one shift that someone can make to start being that person who gives more instead of just take, right? Can you speak into that just real quickly?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, and again, this goes with these people on like the Facebook groups, like, where, hey, what's the top comp? Who has the top comp, right? Again, they're trying to take, and, just changing the mindset of, what can I do today to help somebody, right? And stop with the mindset of like, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And when you start doing, and this is the thing, like every single thing we spoke about, nothing's going to change overnight. Like, you can't change the person you're overnight, right? But it's about creating the habits and changing these small habits. People look at successful people like there's some big, amazing people, and all it is they just have better habits.
Yeah.
That's it. I saw somebody the other day too. I'm big on this one, is the shopping cart. Yeah. Let me ask you this. What do you do with the shopping cart when you're done with it?
Yeah. I actually take it back into
you take it back, right? And that's what they said. The person put a post about a shopping cart, and they said, "I don't know one person that makes a good amount of income that doesn't put the shopping cart away." Right. And I always thought it was like a pet peeve of mine, right? I'm like, dude, why don't people put the cart away? Like, I don't care where the heck I'm parked. Yeah. That cart's going where it belongs, whether it's in the thing in the parking lot or back to the store. And it's those small little habits and changing that mindset, right? As I ain't putting that in, like, those are the things that change what your life looks like. And it doesn't make sense to some people. All right. It didn't make sense to me. Oh, well, so I just put my shopping cart back and I'm going to make money. I'm going to be successful. Yes, absolutely. You are, but you're going to have to do it in a lot of other little things like that to see it.
Yeah, no, I love what you're saying. And speaking of like, these great people, I think of the Avengers because of your Captain America shield back there, Thor hammer. A lot of people think successful people are just Avengers, right? That they have some superpower that no one else has. But the reality is you're exactly right. Ed Milet says it this way. It's not the most motivated that win in life. It's those that have the best habits in place and best disciplines and best rituals. And I remember there was a day where I never put the shopping cart back. And then over time, that consistency and those habits and disciplines begin to compound, right? And listen, if you're watching today, that's what David's talking about. Some of you have consumer habits instead of contributor habits, right? All your habits are based on consuming, building the kingdom of me, myself, and I, and me. And you don't contribute everything. And you want this massive harvest in your life, but you don't want to sow any seeds of generosity. You don't want to sow any seeds of impact. You don't want to sow seeds of it's better to give than receive. And this is what David's talking about. And it sounds, once again, productive and counterintuitive. But I promise you, if you'll begin to put that consistently in your life, you'll see your life begin to change real quickly, because you talked about managing all these different agents. I'm a big John Maxwell guy. He's the OG of leadership, in my opinion. And he talks about great leaders learn that they can't manage people all the same way, right? So give me something as a leader that how you've had to grow as a leader, I should say, and be able to manage these different agents. Is there something that you had to work on yourself to you talked about listening earlier, but what else maybe is part of that secret formula or that recipe to managing agents and getting the most out of them, even though they have different personalities?
Yeah. So 100%, everybody has a different personality, and everyone's going to be a little bit different. And, when I'm talking to people, or when I'm dealing with a problem, it comes down to one thing, right? How do I help this person get the best out of themselves? Right. And that the answer to that question is different. Like, without going through names, I'm thinking of one agent now, and when they have a lot of pressure on them, they don't do well with it. Right. And they do a lot better without the pressure. So I have to deal with them in a different way where I'm building them up, where other agents, they might like that competitive pressure and they might thrive in it, right? When you have a competition, they might thrive. So everybody's different. And I think the biggest thing is, again, one, you got to build the trust. It's the most important thing. And then two, you really have to listen to people, and you have to think about them first. I think another thing that I do real good is, I have a little saying, their bank account before mine, right? Like, every decision I make for one of my agents is, it's for them. It's how to help them. It's not like, oh, what should I tell them to help me? Right. So I'm always putting them first, and I'm always trying to figure out, again, how could I help them? And then also protect them, right? There's a lot you learn in just being an entrepreneur, right? And in this business, there's a lot you learn, and there's a lot of mistakes to be had, and there's mistakes I've made. So if I see somebody doing something that I don't think is productive for their business, and sometimes it's kind of productive for my business. Sometimes it works good for me, but not for them. But I have to tell them, like, hey, listen, like, you don't want to do that. It's not making sense for you, as a business. So the biggest thing is, really putting the people first and trying to figure out how to help them. And ultimately, the more people I help, the better it ends up being for my business, obviously. But again, it's just being real, being real and being a service to people, and trying to figure out how to help them, and realizing everyone's different, and just, putting the time and the effort in to help them. There's a lot of people that make what I make, that aren't very active in their business anymore, and my goal is, my goals are pretty large. I want to be the largest final expense agency in the country. So I got a lot more people I got to help reach some goals.
Sure. So I ask everybody that comes on the podcast this: if there was one word that you would use to describe David, what would that one word be?
Oh man, I don't know if I could one word.
Well, give me a hyphenated word. Give me 3 words, but if you can drill it down to one word, that'd be great.
I guess the biggest one that I think that really helps me is I just have laser focus. When I got my insurance license, I sat down my fiance. She actually moved to Florida with me. And, she left her, her hometown. And I told her that, listen, for this next year, 2 years, 3 years, I'm going to be really, really focused on building a business, and I'm going to sacrifice a lot, but because of that, we'll be able to do anything we want to do. And she's like, all right, well, I'll give you 5, which was pretty cool. But my first year, I really didn't do much except for work. If it was like, hey, it's Saturday, you want to go to the beach? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to work. And, people probably thought I was crazy at the time.
Sure.
Because I didn't do a lot of things, and I was, working a lot when other people weren't. But now most people want to be me, right? But again, that's where, like, okay, cool. Here's the blueprint. Here's exactly what I did. And if you can do this for 3 or 4 years, you're going to be in a lot better place. And like, well, I don't know if I want to go up my Saturdays. I'm like, all right, well, sure. That was part of it.
Yeah. I've heard it said this way, and I've kind of adopted this because my personality type, I can tend to be a shiny object syndrome person. And so multiple streams of income ultimately became multiple streams of distractions.
Yes.
Do you see that a lot with agents? And if so, speak into that. How does someone begin to eliminate that in their life or eradicate that so they can get laser focused like a David Price?
Yeah. So that was a big one for me too. So there's, some other ways I made money. And when I started, I just stopped everything. I stopped everything that I did. It's just amazing. Like, just think about it. It's common sense, right? If you're just working on one thing, how much more successful you could be as opposed to splitting your energy over multiple things. Sure. And people they think that they need to do these other things, right? They don't realize like you can be successful with one thing. And I just challenge people. I just challenge you to find the thing that, where people get really caught up. They get caught up in like the product, or they get caught up in, even out of this industry. Let's say somebody says, hey, I like baking, so I want to start a bakery. Yeah. Right? Okay, cool. You want to start a bakery? No problem. Where do you want to live? Well, I want to live in a $500,000 house, and I want to drive a $100,000 car. Okay. Well, how much do you think somebody makes that owns a bakery? Right? Just because it's a business doesn't mean it's a good business, right? Unless, again, if money's not a thing and you just want to bake cakes all day long, but somebody that owns a bakery, they may make $30,000 a year. And people get so caught up in that. And what I think people have to do is they have to look at what's their destination, where do they want to go, what do they want their life to look like, right? And once they figure that part out, well, now it's like, okay, cool. So what's the vehicle that's going to get me there? And who's going to be able to show me the way? And then they just focus on those two things. Because listen, if 5 years ago, somebody's like, hey, listen, I can show you how to make $1 million a year selling volleyballs. We got these special volleyballs. People are calling commercials off the hook to sell them. I need you to develop a sales team and help sell these volleyballs. And I guarantee you can make a 7-figure income. I'll be talking about selling volleyballs to you right now.
Sure.
Right. And that was it. Like it's find a need and fill that need.
Sure. And it's interesting you say that, because I heard you talk about earlier how you weren't really looking to get in the insurance, industry necessarily. And so we hear this, and it almost becomes cliche and kind of like a broken record about passion. And while I'm very passionate about what I do, it's not my ultimate, but I'm using it to fund my ultimate vision. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So speak into that. Like, how does someone balance that? Because you hear so much about, if you're not doing what you love, if you don't love your passion, you're doing the wrong thing. And while I do agree with that to some degree, I do believe that sometimes you just have to be good where you're at and use it to fund the ultimate thing.
Yeah, absolutely. One, we all got to live, right? And then,
sure.
What's the other thing? We go get a job and help someone else build their dreams. So sure. That's the one. But when I started, again, I was writing business, right? My goal wasn't to write business. I'm definitely allergic to fire ants. If I get bit by 2 or 3 fire ants, I'm in the hospital, clothes cut off, not breathing, like EpiPens, like close to near-death experience.
Right.
So I'm living in South Florida. I'm walking in people's yards, fire ants everywhere, right? It was like I was at war every single day. I was more uncomfortable there than I was in Iraq. But then that was part of the process to get to where I'm at now, right? That wasn't my story. That wasn't where I was ending. That wasn't my destination. That was just the way to get there. You know, if I'm
Yeah.
driving to California, well, yeah, I'm gonna have to drive through some states I don't want to be in to get to California, right? So that's
Right.
part of it. But now, I mean, now I love what I do. I mean, I help so many people, you know, change their lives financially. I got single moms, you know, housewives that were just struggling as a household. I mean, I have a lot of people that, you know, make great livings, and they weren't doing anything like this before. So they're super thrilled. So I love what I do, but the thing is, just realize it's all about being better. And then, you know, I used to repo cars, I sold cars. I mean, I had 1,000 different jobs, but again, that was all the journey, and those tools that I learned from all those things are what got me to where I'm at now. And, you know, to be able to do even bigger things in the future. So it's not where you're at now, it's about where you're going, and becoming the person you need to be when you get to the place you're going to.
Yeah, and I love that last part, what you just said, because I'm a firm believer in this, David, that a lot of times we want the position, the titles, the blessing, if I can use that Christianity term there, the blessing, but we don't want to become the person necessary to be a good steward of that, right? Like we don't increase the capacity that's needed, because the David 3 years ago probably could not handle $1 million in commissions properly, right? You've spent 3 years becoming this person where you did $1 million. Now this year on track to do $1 million. So you were perpetually becoming something. You were growing in capacity to become that best version of David necessary or needed to be a steward of that. Because I truly believe that if God, and that's for me, gave me certain things in my 20s, I would have squandered it and blown it and really never learned anything from it. Have you seen that in your own life as well?
100%. Yeah. I mean, the first thing is, you know, I say, man, I wish I learned this in my 20s,
Right.
but I would have messed it all up. Right.
Yeah.
I would have messed it up, and who knows where I would have been in jail. Right. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah. And, you know, you have to change to be able to create the amount of income you want to create, right? You can't be the same person, and you change through that process. So what you're saying is exactly right, and I definitely believe it, and I experienced it. I felt it. I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago. I'm not the same person I was a year ago, you know, and because if I was, I'd be creating the same amount of income I was a year ago.
Yes.
I wouldn't be double my income every year. So you have to be a different person, and to be a different person, you have to be doing different things, talking to different people, listening to different stuff, right? That's what changes you. And it's the people that just keep doing the same thing every single day and expecting different results that, you know, they're the ones that get mad, the naysayers, like you said, the hypocrites.
Yeah. Listen, I just want to stop right there as we get ready to wrap this up. What David just said, some of you are still trying to live off the 2019 version of yourself, and it's not enough. Go back and listen to what he just said, because the 2019 version of yourself is not good enough for the 2022 income that you need to make, right? Or that you're wanting to make, I should say, in your life. And I totally agree with that. You can't live off that version. You got to perpetually becoming something greater. As we wrap up, I interview people in different spaces, obviously, because I'm in the insurance space. I get to interview a lot of guys like and leaders like yourself, but let's just speak generically for a minute to that entrepreneur out there who just is in that prison of life has happened to me, right? Just maybe speak some life into them, like reach deep into their soul, David. Just give us some nuggets, some wisdom that you would speak to them right now that maybe would just compel them to get out of that prison and start doing something with their life.
I mean, the biggest thing is, again, like deciding what they want, because 6 months into this business, I almost quit. And if I quit at that point, that would have been my story. My story, like, David got his insurance license. He worked his butt off for 6 months. He only made $30,000. Who would have made more money at McDonald's for the amount of hours he was putting in, and that was it. And I refused for that story to be my story, and I kept going to where my story changed. So David got an insurance license, became the fastest millionaire at Single Life Insurance Company, right? You know, completely changed that. So I think that, you know, wherever you're at, like, you just have to realize, like, just create some action, listen, as long as you could become 1% better, if you could become 0.0%, 0.01% better every single day, and you work on that every single day, I mean, it's amazing what you could accomplish. I mean, 8 years ago, I was sleeping on someone's couch. I didn't own a car. So obviously, financially, my life's a lot better than it was then. And it's because I refused to stay on that couch and I refused to not have a car, right? I just kept on working on making my life better every single day, one day at a time.
Well, listen, man, you have brought some fire today. You dropped some gold. I know when this interview drops in a few weeks, it's going to bless folks. It's going to encourage, empower people. Where can we find you if somebody wants to connect with you online?
Yeah. I use Dave Price Official. So on Instagram, David Price Official, YouTube, David Price Official. My website's tpglife.com. My email is david@tpglife.com. So you could pretty much Google David Price Insurance, and hopefully I'm the one that comes up. I'm working hard to make sure I am. But David Price Official usually help you find me.
Yeah, and we'll put all that in the description when it drops here in a few weeks. But as we wrap this up today, I just want to look in the camera and just say to all of you, we do this because I believe, this is what I believe, that there's a divine creator who put a leader in every single one of you. And I pray that when we do these interviews, that something just reaches deep into your soul, so to speak, and says, you know what? It's about time that I start living on purpose. It's about time that I start betting on me. It's about time that I start taking that action, no matter how small and insignificant you may think it is. I promise you it's significant in the overall grand scheme of things. But I pray that something we said, and this is my terminology here, that we put fresh wind in your sails. Don't quit. Keep going. You're worth it. You matter. You have value. The world needs to hear what you have to offer. And I want you to see that today. So as we wrap up, David, I just want to say thank you once again for bringing it today. I know this is going to be an encouragement to people when this drops. And I just want to say to all of you, God bless you guys. And listen, make it an awesome day. And we'll talk to you soon.